When a young man believes he's found the ultimate alien conspiracy theory, will anyone listen to him? And then we take a trip to Grandma's house for some fresh baked cookies, some grand motherly love, and a visit from a spirit who never wants you to leave. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Season Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, walking into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Blitz Neo. Woohoo, yeah, yeah, woohoo, yay. He's all walking on in real fast because he's blitzing us. Blitz Neo, I actually think it's pronounced Blitz Neo. That's the same thing. Well, hey, listen, man, I'll be honest, I just woke up from a nap. I probably shouldn't be recording this quickly after, rubbing my eyes and rolling out of bed. No, Blitz, N-E-Y-O, Blitz Neo, not Blitz Neo. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Well, it does, because the guy gave me money. The guy supported the show financially during the 6th anniversary special. I shouldn't say the way his name is pronounced. Doesn't matter. Man, this is going to be strap in. This episode might get wonky. Blitz Neo, you're going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, I totally understand. I really do. You're like, Jason, you don't even care about our names. I do care about your names. If you guys can't support the show financially, I totally understand. I do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out a lot. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. I can just imagine some of you guys now going, well, okay, I'm just going to mispronounce the name of your show, Jason. See how you like it. I want to see how many people can find Dead Rabbit Radio. I'll give you a taste of real medicine, Blitz Neo. Let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit dirigible. Everyone climb on board this big, beautiful blimp as Blitz Neo flies us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way down to a scientific laboratory. Nice. You should really fly it in the Dead Rabbit dirigible all the way up to the science laboratory. And we get there, we see a bunch of guys walking around in lab coats. They have all these beakers and stuff. They're walking around holding beakers in each hand. They're like, move out of the way, civilians. We have science to do. And they're like pouring chemicals into the beakers. And the other guy sitting at the clipboard, he's like, oh, yes. If you add water and salt, it makes salt water. I made a discovery. I'm going to call it Jason juice. They're like, what? No, we already knew that. Okay. And then they're like mixing other chemicals. They're like, if you take a base and an acid and mix them together, it's a scientific laboratory. They have millions of dollars of equipment. They're mixing together vinegar and baking powder or baking soda. I see I'm going to be horrible scientist. I was like, what is it? Baking powder? Is that it? They're like, no. Doing all this science stuff. They got like triple beams. They're putting powder on it. And they're like, according to this scale. We're like, guys, okay, we get it. You're a scientist. You got your lab coats on. You're doing all the science stuff. Why are we here? That's when the head scientist turns around and he goes, well, gentlemen, I wanted to show you a discovery. I know science hasn't been the best friend to the UFO community. We're real stick in the mud about that one. What? Aliens aren't real, and neither is Pluto. Like, yeah. You like to ruin everybody's day. But now, the scientist continues, we have discovered this. He's holding this little piece of metal. I'm like, oh, okay, what's that? He goes, this is what aliens have been putting in people's brains. We found that every single human on the planet at some point has been abducted by aliens. Every single human on the planet has one of these devices in their brain. And we're like, oh man, that's huge. That's huge. We're also all scared. We're like, the aliens, they know our thoughts. Get it out. But now we have scientific proof that aliens exist, and the head scientist goes, yeah, quite the discovery. Would you like me to take your implants out? And we're like, yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and get these bad boys out of our brains. And so I sit down in the chair, and the scientist comes up behind me, and he's first he's all putting on like a hostile suit. It's all like this blood-covered, gore-drenched garb. He puts it on because he's going to have to drill it on my head. He goes, now this will just take a second. He's drilling this hole in my brain. Well, in the skull, right? He hasn't gotten to the brain yet. But he drills a hole in my skull. And then he goes, there it is. There's the implant. And he starts to tug on it. And I go, oh, no, stop. Oh, no, stop. Oh, you need some anesthetic in his brain. He's on the bottom eyes. Jeffrey Dahmer comes walking in. He's like, ooh la la, what I've always wanted. He's numbing my brain so he can pull out this implant. But I keep going, ow, no, it's not my brain. It's not my brain that's hurting as he's trying to pull this piece of metal out. Because these implants, while they are in our brains, just to be clear, I'm not saying any of this is true. There's this other guy, you're like, wow, Jason's really lost it. There's a guy we're going to get to, this is his conspiracy theory. Not only does every human have an implant in their brain, because we've all at one point or another been abducted by aliens, but this implant is in our brain and then it's connected to our urethra. Urethra, where you pee out of, because I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that word. What is connected to Aretha Franklin? Wow, she's the queen of all aliens. No, this little piece of metal in your brain, this tracking device, this way that they control us, has wiring that goes all the way down to your urethra. So when you pull it, right, you can do all sorts of numbing on the brain, but it's like, your genitals are being pulled inside out. Very painful. Very, very painful. So I'm like, okay, I'm done, doc. I got this hole in my head. The implant's halfway hanging out of the top of my skull. It's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want you to pull on something that's going to be yanking with my urethra at the same time. So this is the conspiracy theory of a man, we'll call him Luther. He believes that every single human on the planet has one of these devices in them. It's connected to their urethra. It allows the aliens to track us, to talk to us telepathically, to do all these things. That's an interesting enough conspiracy theory on its own. What makes this even more bizarre and puts it in a subset of very, very specific conspiracy theories is Luther, the name we're giving to this guy who came up with this theory, believes that this is also what causes autism. Is some of us, these alien implants, are interfering with our brain, interfering with the way that the brain should work. Autism is caused by aliens. Now, what's super, and I'm not, just for the YouTube algorithm, I'm not saying that that's true. And even not the YouTube algorithm, let me go on the record, I don't think any of this is true. But if you look back at early episodes of Dead Rabbit Radio, this might have been like in the 200s, we covered a guy who was very adamant that aliens caused autism. Luther's not alone in having this belief. It's super rare, but it does pop up. I find it very interesting that we do see multiple people over periods of years have this same idea that aliens cause autism, because we don't really see that autism connected to any other, well, there's one other conspiracy theory, but to most of them, right, it's not connected to, we never hear stories about ghosts causing autism, or demons causing autism, or cryptids, or interdimensional portals, like all these other paranormal events we look at. We don't see it connected to autism. The closest we have in the conspiracy theory world, I would argue, is when you start to say 5G, or this new technology that we have. These beams coming through the homes are causing autisms. And that, usually the 5G is supposed to like melt your brain, turn you into a zombie, give you cancer. That's probably the most quote unquote reasonable one. Not going to turn anyone into a zombie. So it's very interesting that we have a couple people now. I know where at least one of those episodes are. I believe we've talked about it 2 times before this. I'll try to find both of those episodes, but this idea that aliens cause autism. And it's a unique conspiracy theory because we don't get a lot of that. We've never had a conspiracy theory that I can remember saying all cancer is caused by aliens or all dementia is caused by aliens. But we get stories like this. Now, Luther, the way he came about this, I mean, I'm going to try my best to interpret his post. He posted this online underneath the name Worldliness Large 5198. And from what I gather, that's his newest account. From what I gather, he's been banned multiple times from Reddit. But this particular story, he said, when I was 7 years old, my nonverbal autistic brother, who we will call Eric, he goes, when I was 7 years old, my nonverbal autistic brother was beating me up. And I couldn't get him to stop, and then these aliens beamed this message into my head, and they told me that my brother has autism because the alien technology is malfunctioning. Okay, birth of a conspiracy theory, right? That's where he comes from. But then in his own post, he also says that the aliens go on to tell Luther, every time Eric beats you up, it's our fault. But we really don't care. We're kind of glad he's beating you up. We're not stopping it. Well, now Luther is 26, and Eric is still beating him up. I'm going to try to make as much sense of his post as I can, because it's quite odd. I'm not just talking about the conspiracy theory. It's almost written in a non-linear fashion. Luther says when he was 7 years old, his nonverbal autistic brother, who we will call Eric. Luther says when I was 7 years old, Eric, my nonverbal autistic brother, was beating me up one day. He beat me up all the time. But on this particular day, the aliens beamed a message into my head. They go, hey, the reason why your brother is autistic is because of us. Our technology is malfunctioning. But we're really not going to do anything about it. We're going to let him beat you up. And we are responsible for all the times he beats you up now and in the future. Well, then the post jumps to the future because he's like, I'm 26 now, and my brother's still beating me up. He's like trying to type it out, and he's getting punched in the head. He's like, come on, man. He goes, now I'm 26. I'm still getting beat up by the aliens. It's the year 2024, so he's writing this currently. I'm still getting beat up by my brother who has alien-induced autism. But then when I was 7, my brother was about to hit me, and the aliens fixed the brain implant. They removed it, actually. His urethra gets turned inside out. It's like, he's screaming. Now we go back to when he's 7. He goes, Eric was beating me up and the aliens removed the implant, and I watched Eric's face shift. Like I could see that questioning look on his face, like he was mid-punch, and he goes, huh? And he goes, I could see that look on Eric's face, like, what am I doing? Why am I even punching my brother? His autism went away when Luther was 7. But then Luther also says he's 26 now, and his brother still beats him up. Maybe the brother's just like, well, I don't have autism anymore, but you are a jerk, and I'm a brother, so I'm going to beat you up. He says that his brother's autism was cured when Luther was 7. There's two things going, well, there's a bunch of stuff going on here, but there's two things I kind of want to highlight. Luther goes on to write this. He says, quote, he's talking about the subreddit. It is the Abductions, the alien abductions subreddit. He posted this online underneath the name Worldliness Large 5198. Luther says, quote, I read stories on this subreddit all the time that these beings who are taking us are here to teach us about, quote, love and light. And we are here for a grander purpose, and we are, quote unquote, one. I almost fell for it. The ETs themselves convinced me of it. But so actually, let's stop there, because I think that is interesting in and of itself. There is a big component to the UFO community that is like there are space brothers. They are here to help us. They're here to help humanity ascend. We want disclosure so we can become part of the galactic brotherhood, all of this stuff. What's interesting is that we have enough accounts to say that might be the case, But we have enough accounts to say that's not the case. That these are actual evil entities. They are a antagonistic, militaristic, space-conquering species. Because you can really see it both ways. Sometimes they do say, put your nukes down, clean the environment, stuff like that. Good message. Lame messages, but still good for the species overall. And then we have multiple accounts of both men and women being abducted and being raped on spacecraft. People being dissected, these scientific experiments being done on them, the terror that is induced in humans while they're doing these procedures. And you could say, well, Jason, humans are the same, right? We have peacekeeping groups. We have groups that want to save the whales and protect the environment and all that stuff. While in the same species, we have people, scientists who will, take ducks and do experiments on them. Or, actually more brutal than that, we have people, chefs we call them, but I call them monsters among men, where they'll take a duck and they'll force feed it until its liver plumps up, and then they kill the duck and it's faux gras? I mean, it's disgusting. I don't know, maybe the food's delicious, I've never had it, but you torture the animal so you can sit there and go, ooh la la, and eat this disgusting chunk of meat on your plate. So we have both in our own species. So here's the thing. I would never go out and say all humans are good. I would never go out and say all humans are evil. I think there's enough of a mix there. So I understand where he's coming from. And we can see, since we are human and we can look at the breadth of humanity, we can go, well, most humans are good. We have some bad ones. Serial killers, chefs. But then when we're talking about an alien species that, first off, most of us have never encountered at all, forgetting Luther's conspiracy that we've all been abducted at some point, more people will have a ghost encounter than will ever have an alien encounter. It's not even close. We have to go off what other people say. Now, if you're looking at the beautiful stories, then yeah, you think that Space Brotherhood is totally awesome. But if you look at all the horrible stories, you think they're a horrible, evil force in our part of the galaxy. The truth may lie somewhere in the middle. But I agree with Luther on that point, that they keep telling us, the UFO community, there's a big part of it. I mean, do you want disclosure if you know the answer is they are going to conquer the planet? That is the goal. We've known that since the 1950s. We don't know why they haven't made a move yet. Like, do you want disclosure where the government says UFOs are real and this is what we know? If the answer is we don't know a lot, they're definitely antagonistic. At some point they will make a move and try to invade the planet. Until then, they can, without any repercussions, abduct the citizens of this world and maybe bring them back. Is that the press conference you want? Because that might be the press conference that's true. It may not be UFOs exist and they're getting us ready for this next stage of human consciousness, or the stories of UFOs and abductions are true, but as far as we can tell, they're as scientific as we are when we go out into the jungle and we capture a couple muskrats to do some experiments on. But if the answer is they are completely antagonistic, they have the ability to shut down our most powerful weapons, they can abduct us at any moment, there's nothing we can do about it, there is no way we can keep you safe, and their bigger plan, we believe, is the conquering of the planet and either the extermination or the enslavement of humanity. And we've been working on this since the 1950s. We cannot figure out any way to fight them off on any huge scale. No further questions. Is that the disclosure movement you want to? That's an interesting element to this. But then, so he says that, right? Let me start this quote over again. He goes, quote, I read stories on the subreddit all the time that these beings who are taking us are here to teach us about love and light, and we are here for a grander purpose, and we are one. I almost fell for it. The ETs themselves convinced me of it. Fascinating, possibly right. Let's continue. Quote, but I completely forgot my nonverbal autistic brother sleeps in the bedroom next to mine. And he hit me many times. And the same ET showed me that they damaged his brain. I called the police on him prior. I went to a homeless shelter. They told me as a child that they are responsible for his nonverbal autism, unquote. So I don't even really know, like, what? I don't get it. They gave his brother nonverbal autism. His brother beats him up, but I thought his brother was cured when he was 7. But okay, let's say that we got that part confused because it was written in a confused way. You called the police on your brother and then you went to a homeless shelter? I don't understand that. And in a post talking about all of this wild stuff, I feel like we're kind of missing a portion of it. He called the police on his brother, and then Luther went to a homeless shelter. Was he forced out of the home? Does he currently live in a homeless shelter? Very, very unusual story. There's a bunch of stuff going on, right? You're like, Jason, the whole story's been quite the roller coaster. You're like, oh no, you went to a homeless shelter? I don't know if I know what's going on. The whole story's quite the adventure, but I just don't understand that. And I don't understand if Eric has been cured. It's almost like this weird time lapse. It's like the story was being told in a non-linear fashion, which I would argue if you were abducted by aliens and they were constantly tormenting you, you might have a hard time writing a paragraph. I'll give that to you. You also might end up in a homeless shelter. We did an episode on that a long time ago. How many people who are homeless and just kind of walking down the street muttering to themselves may have been abducted by aliens at some point? Because a lot of times, and this is such a weird quirk of alien abduction stories, they abduct you and then they drop you off in the wrong spot. It happens, not all the time, but it happens enough. I don't know if it's because they're being mean or if their technology is not as precise as we think it might be. Because it happens a good amount of time. And in that particular story, someone was abducted by an alien, and then when they were dropped back on Earth, they were in Skid Row or Times Square in New York. And I said, if you were abducted, let's say it's the early 1970s or something like that, and you lived in Sunset Springs, Idaho, or wherever, you got abducted, they did all these experiments to you, and they dropped you off in the middle of New York City. There's no way you're getting back unless they abducted you with your wallet. You're wandering now the streets of New York, and you're trying to tell people, I was abducted by aliens, abducted by aliens. The cops are just going to kind of push you along with their batons. You might be stuck there forever. This might sound like a weird segue, but a long time ago, I watched a documentary about gay drug addicts in New York. Gay homeless drug addicts in New York. That's what the documentary was about. I'll see if I can find it. It was pretty intense. But one of the guys said, he goes, this happens from time to time. He goes, you'll get some dad who is leaving his state. Let's say he lives in Sunset Springs, Idaho. I don't even know if it's a real town, but he goes, you'd get some dad traveling to New York for a business meeting or for a convention or something like that. And they end up trying to find someone to hook up with, trying to get someone on the down low, right? Married at home, but they want to sleep with a dude in New York. And he goes, this happens. He goes, this guy will come and he'll meet some young man and they'll hook up. And during the hookup, the local will be like, hey, you want to smoke some crack? You want to smoke some crack since you're here? The guy's like, yeah, when in New York, right? Isn't that the rule? When in New York, smoke crack. He goes, we'd see these married guys from other states come out here. They'd smoke crack. They'd blow through all their money in a weekend, and then they would never be able to leave. They'd be stuck here. They'd become homeless gay bums like the rest of us. Which sounds like the most intense zombie movie ever. You go, Jason, I'm sure they could call their wife and say, hey, honey, I'm in New York. I lost my wallet. I'm sure they can make up a story and the wife, send him more money so he could get home. But the point was, yeah, that could happen, but then he'd spend it all on crack. So then he's stuck there. Because you only get twice. You only get to try to leave New York twice. And if you can't leave it then, you become a gay, homeless drug addict. Very interesting documentary. I'll see if I can find it. But anyways, There's nothing to do with this story. I just thought about people being trapped in New York. Nothing to do with this. So, Luther's posting all of this stuff. It's quite the interesting conspiracy theory, right? It's a very, very niche one. Aliens cause autism, which I obviously don't believe. It's a kind of a tasteless conspiracy theory. I think that's what I said in previous episodes as well. Because it would be the same thing if you said, is it dementia caused by aliens? When people are suffering from these real ailments. Like, I know a lot of people who hate the conspiracy theory that AIDS was created by the U.S. military or the U.S. government. There's a lot of people who hate that conspiracy theory because they said it's so disrespectful to the people who have AIDS. And I think it's the same reason why there's a lot of people who find 9/11 truther conspiracy theories distasteful. Because they go, real people died in that one. If you want to talk about the moon landing, if you want to talk about JFK, he's been dead for a while, go nuts. When you talk about these Sandy Hook, right? That was the big thing that tripped up Alex Jones. Was making comments saying that he had two versions of it. And these are the two most famous Sandy Hook conspiracy theory ones. One, that Sandy Hook, the shootings were actually, it was a federal job. That the government sent one or more agents in, military operatives in, to shoot up the school and to blame it on this kid. But it was actually a government-run operation. That's the number one conspiracy. The number two conspiracy is, it didn't happen at all. It didn't happen at all, that none of the kids died and all of the family members were crisis actors. The entire town was run by the CIA. None of those kids existed. One of those conspiracy theories is far more tasteless than the others, right? To say it did happen, but it was a government... I don't believe in either of those conspiracy theories either, but if you say that it did happen and those children unfortunately were killed, but the government was behind it, that's one thing. The other one is that it didn't happen at all. Alex Jones was kind of trafficking both of those. He didn't make them up. Those conspiracy theories were around before Alex Jones started talking about them. The issue was that to the general public, and I'd even argue to a lot of his listening audience, and especially to the families of these children who died, it came off as incredibly tasteless. It's one thing to go, someone has this conspiracy theory, and this is why I don't think that it's real. Or somebody has this conspiracy theory, and this is just an odd thing. It's another thing to, he would make comments saying, I think they're crisis actors, or I don't think it happened. And so he was trafficking in it that way. And so it became a legal matter. He was being sued in civil court. And now he owes, $1.5 billion. And really, he owes that. I know, I just woke up from a nap, guys. That's why I know this episode's all over the place. But he didn't really lose the case. It was not a First Amendment case. The reason why he lost, because he didn't turn over documents that the judge asked him to. The judge kept saying, I want to see your financials. I want to see how much money you made during the time period you were talking about this. And the paperwork, the financials weren't handed over. So the judge ruled in default. Which means there was no trial about free speech. There was no thing where Alex Jones got up there and explained why he said those things, explained, hey, I don't think they're real, because he's come out now and says, I don't believe those conspiracy theories. It was never a first speech case. It could have been had he turned over the financials. They could have had a trial. The trial was simply to determine how much he owed, because the judge, this happened in two separate cases. The judge goes, I don't know. I need that document. You're not giving me the documents. And they gave him ample time, and then they ruled in default, which will happen to anybody. You'll have a default judgment. So it wasn't a First Amendment case, but you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you can have very tasteless conspiracy theories that turn people off. And I find it really interesting that this is a super small subset of alien conspiracy theories. And I don't hear conspiracy theories that demons cause autism. I don't hear conspiracy theories that the Mandela effect causes autism. It's always aliens and autism, and I don't know why people, and not many people, really, I think 3, and maybe the people who follow these guys. I remember we had the guy who, I think it was a hat you could wear that would cure autism because it was blocking out the alien rays. I'll have to find that episode, but even at the time I go, this is pretty tasteless because you're giving these people hope saying that you can cure autism if you buy one of his hats. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. Wait, no, where was I going with this? Let's go back. We got Sandy Hook. We got gay homeless drug addicts of New York. What? Huh? Oh, so anyways, he posts this. He's posting this online. And he's saying, you guys, we all have it too. We all have these implants. And if yours isn't working right, it's because the aliens. If you have autism or someone you love with autism, it's because the aliens. All this type of nonsense. He posts this on the Abductions subreddit, the very first reply to it. Some guy wrote, "Not you again." I was like, well, okay, I guess this guy's been pretty popular or unpopular on this subreddit. The very first reply was, "Not you again. No one believes you. Get help." Which I would agree with that last statement, right? Unfortunately, it's not that no one who believes him. This is a conspiracy theory in the conspiracy theory paranormal world. I do agree that there's probably something else going on here, that Luther may need counseling or mental health services. Because, it's interesting because, like I said, we've covered crazy. I don't think Hans Wormhat, who believes monkeys don't exist and the color orange is evil, and I don't think he needs mental health help. I think that he's not right. I think he makes a lot of bad calls, but I don't think he's nutty. He does, from what we gathered over the years that we've kind of looked at his YouTube videos, apparently he has a job. He has a girlfriend. I believe that popped up, maybe a wife that had popped up in one of his videos. He seems to be doing okay. He believes in some of the craziest conspiracy theories possible, but that alone, I don't think you don't need mental help because you believe in crazy stuff. But when the conspiracy theories kind of interfere with your day-to-day life, in this case, he's ending up in a homeless shelter, which could be not related to this, but I'm guessing it kind of is. If you believe all of humanity is being controlled by aliens, when you're working a job and your boss tells you, hey man, you're not doing a good job, you're going to be like, oh, that's what I expect an alien-controlled puppet to say. What? And all of a sudden, he's like doing urethra checks at work. He's sneaking in with a flashlight to, alien implants nice and good inside of you. You're like, get out of here. You're just standing in the stall. This guy comes slithering underneath the ground. I mean, if he's causing this static, if he's trying to tell his parents, no, you got to understand, Eric, his autism can be cured. We just got to get this brain implant out. Like, that'll definitely put stress on the family. There are some conspiracy theories that people can take too seriously. It's funny that I say that now, because if I remember correctly, the guy who sold the hats that blocked the alien autism rays, he's doing fine. He's doing fine. He's making money. I mean, as far as I know, he's not in a homeless shelter. Not like that's the ultimate. I've been homeless. I think a lot of people journey in and out of homeless in their life. But I would argue that there is the difference between a conspiracy theory. I would argue there's a difference between believing something that's simply not true. Monkeys don't exist is a good idea of that. And still being able to function in the modern world. Which I do believe Hans Wormhat does. Right? I mean, as I'm recording this, he's breaking into a zoo and he's beating up gorillas to prove they're just men in suits. I mean, he's been at it for so long that he's probably, at least, I don't believe him, and I think he's wrong, but I don't think he's mentally ill. And there's a big difference between those things. You can be wrong and not be mentally ill. Luther, I mean, maybe I'm jumping the gun on that. We're just seeing this one post. Apparently this guy who goes by the name Normal Red Sky called him out right away. He goes, not you again. So apparently this guy, Luther, has been posting this stuff a lot, and it's a brand new username because I looked through the posting history for Worldliness Large 5198, and there was just like a couple, so apparently this is a new account for him, but who knows? That kind of spiraled. That kind of got really weird. It kind of almost became a meta discussion on conspiracy theories themselves. But I think you guys know what I mean. Like, you can have tasteless conspiracy theories and not be mentally ill. You can be mistaken and not be mentally ill. But, the way that it's funny is that you could have someone who actually believes in everything that society believes and the government believes and medical community believes. You could 100% believe all those things and be nuts as well. Just because you believe in something that is wrong doesn't mean you're nuts. Just because you believe in something that is tasteless doesn't mean you're nuts. Just in the same way that even if you believed everything that you were told by the media and the government, you towed the line with every popular belief, you could still have a mental illness and still need to be counseled. I don't know what any of that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, man, it's going to be an interesting episode to edit, because I don't know how I really ended up on that one. But interesting, or maybe not. Again, I'm kind of floating in my own mind right now. Interesting or not, a conspiracy theory from this young man. I do hope that if he is suffering from some sort of mental illness, it does get treatment. Because, yeah, I do believe, and I could be getting this mixed up with someone else I've been researching lately, I think there's a bit of gang stalking paranoia in it as well, which that is when we are in the realm of mental illness. Now you have paranoid delusions and stuff like that. You can believe monkeys don't exist and still be a fully functional member of society. Blitz Neo. I don't know if we have time to literally do anything else. That even with editing, that's still going to be around 40 some odd minutes. So we're going to do this. If I edit it down and I have room for another story, it'll start here. But if not, if this is just me talking again, means that I think that this episode is pretty much packed. I mean, we did cover everything, right? From aliens causing autisms to gay homeless people in New York. It's like a zombie movie. If you go out there and you start smoking that crack, you're never coming home. That's a conspiracy theory. And then, what else did we talk? I don't remember. Oh, Sandy Hook. I mean, it's like, what in the world? How did I get on that topic? I don't even remember. I have been wanting to talk about the Alex Jones trial, because I watched his last episode. Well, he's been recording again, but it was really like his last InfoWars episode. And it was like this, I'll put it in the show notes. It was this musical montage, that Frank Sinatra song, My Way. I'll do it my way. Your ears are all bleeding. You're like, oh man, Jason, I'm glad you're not a singer. And he's sobbing. He's openly sobbing, Alex Jones. So I'll put that in the show notes. It was interesting to watch. But I mean, then like a week later, he's doing episodes again. He'll always be putting out content. You really can't shut down someone that is so lo-fi. He started off in public access. He doesn't need the big set. You give him a phone, you give him a microphone, whatever, and he'll always have an audience. Hopefully, you know, at the end of the day, now I know we're not going to have time for anything. Alex Jones, to me, has always been a mixed bag. On the one hand, he was one of the very first, like, quote-unquote punk rock conspiracy theorists, where he was, like, boots on the ground type of guy. And he did start off doing public access in Texas, and you found out about him through word of mouth. I remember when I worked at Guitar Center, a buddy of mine, because we were talking about conspiracy theories, he's like, do you know who Alex Jones is? Have you? And this was like early 2000s. It's like, no, I never heard of him. He's like, oh, you got to check him out, dude. You got to check him out. And Infowars.com, like back like in 2005, 2006, dude, that was dope. And the story was always, dude, Alex Jones broke into Bohemian Grove, and you were watching this footage, the ceremony, the cremation of care ceremony and all this stuff. Like, we hadn't seen anything like that in the conspiracy theory community. We'd have people like standing on the street corner selling zines, or you'd find some bizarre website online, but this was like a slickly polished conspiracy theory website news gathering operation. We'd never seen anything like it in the conspiracy theory community. So that was so new and unusual, and he was really a trailblazer in that field. Infowars, man, you could go to that website every single day and it was all this new stuff. Now, I mean, a lot of it wasn't true. A lot of it wasn't true, to be fair. But when you're a conspiracy theorist, especially like I was back then, where I was into all of it. I was like, oh, dude, that might be true. That might be true. I kind of got out of that around 2011, 2012. I really kind of went through that conspiracy theory wormhole, the conspiracy theory tunnel, and came out the other side and go, wow, a lot of that stuff's fake too. I know the government lies to me, and I know the media lies to me, but I thought those guys were telling me the truth because we were on the same side. And then I realized, oh, those conspiracy theorists were lying to me too. They're telling me stuff to keep me scared to keep going to their website for their ad revenue or to buy their merch and all that stuff. That's the thing. You fly through that tunnel and you go, oh, everyone is either tricked or are lying to me. And maybe somewhere in this whole mess, there's a little bit of the truth I can stitch together. I always knew the government lied to me. I always knew the media lied to me. So I trusted the alternative media. And you fly through that conspiracy theory tunnel and you come out the other side, you go, oh, they're all tricksters. Now, I think a lot of them have their hearts in the right place, especially when they start. I think Alex Jones, actually, when he started, is like us. He loved these topics. He loved these stories. And he probably figured he could give a voice to people who didn't trust the government but didn't really know who to get their information from. But I think over time, eventually, the machine gets bigger than the man behind it. And I think that's what happened with InfoWars. I think that's what happened. I know now we're getting super meta, and again, I'll wrap this episode up. I think that's what happened with Sandy Hook. Because I see it on my end. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it one more time, and then we'll wrap the episode up. When I first started doing Dead Rabbit Radio, I go, dude, this is the show I want to do. I'm going to talk about all these crazy things. Creepy conspiracy theories, funny conspiracy theories, maybe some true ones, maybe some stuff that I believe in. We're going to find the weirdest paranormal stories. We're going to find the stuff nobody's ever heard of. We're going to find all of this stuff. And, it starts off, it's slow going, right? Building anything like this, it's slow going. Well, what happened was, I was doing it for a couple months, and then I did an episode about Kevin Spacey giving this weird Christmas video. I'll put it in the show notes. It's a super dated episode now because Kevin Spacey's getting movie roles again. But it was about Kevin Spacey doing this weird Christmas message, and we were kind of like laughing about it, like, because he was acting like a big weirdo. This was after all of the allegations and stuff. That episode on YouTube and on the podcast side blew up. Like, at the time, it was probably 5 to 10 times the normal downloads I would get on an episode. And I sat there. I looked at the algorithm. Now, see, here's the thing. I'm 45, right? So I've been able to watch other people make all these mistakes through their lives in the media landscape. I saw that spike happen on that particular episode. And I sat there and I looked at it and I said, you have a decision to make, Jason. This is clearly what people want. People want to know about this Kevin Spacey connected to the Illuminati, Queen Elizabeth, all this stuff. Exposing the elites. This is what people want. If you do this episode again tomorrow or the next day, or you start really nailing down this Kevin Spacey Illuminati conspiracy theory, your show will blow up. And I saw that happen again a couple months later, really. I did an episode about, is Elizabeth, what's her name? Eliza, who's the lady? Ellen. Ellen DeGeneres, was Ellen DeGeneres like a shape-shifting reptilian or something like that? Was she arrested by the government? Even bigger than my Kevin Spacey episode. And I looked at that and I go, here's the thing, Jason. You have this audience now. You did these episodes just like you did any other episode, and you see this huge spike. But this is the thing. I sat there and I go, that's not the show I want to do, though. Yeah, it would be a successful show. It would be super successful right here. But I don't want to do that show. I don't want to spend every day looking for more nonsense about Ellen DeGeneres or Tom Hanks or who was the guy we were just talking about, Kevin Spacey, and covering these things and building a show based around that, because at the end of the day, I'm not super interested in that conspiracy theory. I think it's interesting to talk about from time to time. I wouldn't want to spend all day doing it. But my audience, not you guys, but this new audience that popped up because of those episodes, that's what they wanted. And it dwarfed everything that people were listening to otherwise. I do an episode about the Salt Lake Mud Monster. I love that episode. But less people have listened to that episode, and it's been out for about 3 years, than listened to the Ellen DeGeneres episode that first day. But I made a decision. I said, do I want to do the show that will be the most successful right now, Or do I want to do the show that I'm going to love doing 10 years later? The only reason why I was able to make that decision is because I saw what happened to Alex Jones. I watched him for so long in the early 2000s, and I started to fall off later because he started to cover stuff that I knew he didn't believe in. But his audience wanted it. And he got that money. He made that money from that. And I can almost guarantee you that's what happened with Sandy Hook, because I'd seen him do it with other conspiracy theories before that. Stuff that he never really talked about before, and then all of a sudden he's talking about it all the time. And I go, he's having these spikes. His audience is growing because of these particular things. There was a segment of the conspiracy theory audience that was hungry for Sandy Hook conspiracy theories because they thought, I think they've done this poll, and the wording is kind of tricky, but basically they did this poll a couple of years back. 1 in 4 Americans believe the government is hiding information about what truly happened at Sandy Hook. That's a super vague question. That doesn't mean that 1 out of 4 people believes that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that 1 out of 4 people believe that there was some sort of government conspiracy to shoot these kids to get guns. It means that 1 out of 4 people believes that the government is hiding some stuff. They've never given us his manifesto. So, right there, we did an episode on it. Apparently he was writing a pedophilic book. I'll put that in the show notes. We kind of made a connection between school shooters and pedophilia. That super weird episode. And I like doing weird stuff like that may not find an audience as quickly as an Ellen DeGeneres episode did. But this is what I can almost guarantee happened, because Alex Jones says, I don't believe in that Sandy Hook conspiracy theory. There are people hungry for that conspiracy theory. They want to know about it. He mentions it. Alex Jones mentions it. He sees that algorithm spike up and he goes, here we go, boys. This is what we're going to talk about for the next week. Because his views went up. His ad revenue went up. He's selling more merchandise. He has a new audience. And he rode that pony until it wouldn't ride no more. And that's how he got into this situation. He didn't believe it. I honestly believe that he did not believe that in either of those conspiracy theories, but he mentioned it. His algorithm spiked up. Because I'll see that too with I'm naming mostly the Ellen and the Kevin Spacey videos. Those are the ones that are most drastic. Every so often I'll do a weird conspiracy theory and it'll pop up, but it's never as big as those. And I told myself, I go, listen, you can have this super successful show right now. You keep doing this, and I was able to look at Alex Jones and go, I don't believe that he believed in that conspiracy theory, but he talked about it anyways because of the algorithm spike. Do you want to do the show that you want to do 10 years from now, or do you want to do the show that's successful today? Because that's always the trick. It's always the trick for content creators. And I've chosen to do the show that I want to do 10 years from now, which is just finding these weird stories, finding this guy who believes that I'm about to watch this episode. They're like, nope, you've crossed too many red lines. It's calling gay, homeless, drug addicts zombies. You mentioned Sandy Hook multiple times, right? We don't even want to listen to the episode. The automatic algorithm is like, what is this guy up to? On top of all this, you're talking about urethras getting pulled inside out, brain implants causing autism. This is your last episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. Well, if that's the case, then I would just start a podcast, right? You just keep on steaming. Apparently, Alex Jones is going over to X. He'll keep doing his thing. But I really hope that Alex Jones does go back to the old Alex Jones. A long time ago on an episode of Dead Rabbit Radio, I gave this advice to Eminem. I said, I don't even know, because I do like Eminem. I don't remember why I said this years ago, but I said, Eminem needs to do an album, a concept album where he never became famous. And it's basically him as Slim Shady, still working at a dead-end job in Detroit, trying to make it as a rapper. I go, that needs to be the album. It's kind of what he's doing, apparently, with this new album. The Autopsy of Slim Shady, or whatever it is. The Death of Slim Shady. I give Alex Jones that same advice. You need to go back to the guy doing public access. You got to let your staff go. And just go back to that guy who's talking about these things because he loves them. And you're going to make less money. You're going to make less money. And you do, at one point, that judgment's out of control. $1.5 billion. That's too much. I believe that honestly is way, way, way too much. It's so big, it's comical. And people who don't even follow conspiracy theory, because I know a lot of them, right? I follow this stuff all the time. Most of my friends and family don't. Even people I know who don't believe in anything Alex Jones ever says and they don't like him as a person scoff at that judgment because it's so comically large. It'll never be paid, and it looks like they're just trying to silence him. You can't silence a guy who all he needs is a microphone. You just can't. He'll always find a platform. But I'd love to see Alex Jones go back to being the guy on public access. Not having a small voice. I'm not saying like no one watches him. But going back to that dude who covers stuff because he loves it. He's not covering stuff because the algorithm, because he sees the people wanting this. Covering the conspiracy theories that he believes in. Covering the stuff that he's passionate about. And you can talk about other stuff, right? And kind of analyze it. That's what we do here. That's what I like about this. Did become kind of a meta episode on conspiracy theories. Because I love all that stuff. It's almost like backroom baseball, you know, talking about all the scores and the stats and stuff like that. I don't know how much you guys shut this episode off like 20 minutes ago. I'm just talking to myself. No, I know some of you guys like this stuff too. But, yeah, I'd love to see Alex Jones go back to that. Go back to just covering stuff that he believes in and stuff that he's passionate about. Because sometimes that machine will swallow the man who controls it. And then you lose sense of who that man is. And sometimes you do need to become... Sometimes you're Iron Man, right? But you need to go back to Tony Stark sitting in a cave to really find yourself again. And I hope that's what Alex Jones does. Because I think he is... he's definitely a talent. He's definitely a talent. He knows everything there is to know about all of these topics. I just wish he would find his passion again. And if that means you're just recording stuff on your iPhone and posting it on X, the audience will find you. The audience will find you. So there I go. I'm giving advice to a multimillionaire. I know they're not going to be able to get all of his money, but I love all this stuff. I love you guys. I love doing this show. Sometimes it gets... the most stressful part is finding the stories. Finding the stories and getting this stuff ready. But I love you guys. I love this show, and I hope you guys are with it for the next few years. But if you're not, that's fine too. You don't have to listen to every episode. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail. My voice is going out. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Oh, Blitz Neo, we're going to have you back. He's like, wait, what about the Carpenter Copter? Blitz Neo, you're going to be back tomorrow. Don't worry. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today.